Hello, everyone. We got a technical difficulty here. Leave it to me. All right, so I guess my goal and intention, as several of you know me and most of you probably do not, is to sit down and talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done, put together, the way to look at this market a little bit. I try to navigate through this as we're seeing obviously terrible corn prices and looking at basically levels that are non-profitable for most, and how do we navigate through that, right? So one of the tools that I've made, and one of the ways I kind of look at this, and obviously on the corn side, we're in the red now. But the idea behind this is for a guy to sit down and say, okay, looking at your bushels of production based upon your APH or what you believe you're going to have and what the corn price is today, is this sale profitable for me or not, right? I kind of view it as a way, I know my money's worth, in other investments or whatnot, or what it's worth if I were just to cash rent the farm and take that money, right? Out. So if I'm going to continue to farm it, I want to have a level of profitability. This is one of those tools that we have that we've kind of developed that will allow us to sit down and look at things. I think when a lot of guys have seen this, it's put things in a little more perspective. As we're not there today on corn at that profitability, but that doesn't mean we can't get there. Or as something you guys will hear about later, you may still be there, even though it's $3 and it's red on the sheet. Your blended overall price may still be positive because you had some better sales, and you need to be looking at that and making that decision. And this is kind of one of those things that helps do that. So like I said, this is one of those things that feel free to contact us. We all have it. We all have navigated through it. The expense number can change. That's a number at 750 I've put in. I've had a lot of guys tell me that they believe that number's pretty close. Not that that is everybody's exact number, right? There's a lot of things that factor into that. But as we change that number, that will change this formula, and we can sit down with you guys and kind of help, decide what those levels are and where we need to be. So this is one of the things I thought was interesting. We've had a lot of basis questions and things looking at, right? So on the backside, I've taken and run some 5 and 10 year averages, and how I achieve these numbers is I just went to kind of the first trading day after the roll of every month for the last 10 years, and I just pulled whatever Premier's bid sheet prices were, right? So it's not 100% exact by every day, but this gave us a good overall picture and kind of helped paint kind of what futures was, what the differences were between trading months and basis months and things like that. And so what I guess I want to go at with that is looking today and trying to navigate through this coronavirus world, right? As we're looking and where our basis is today. These numbers are all factored upon Dewey. So that's the facility I work out of. And that's, every elevator's got a little bit different based upon what that bid structure is. But just looking at straight Dewey's numbers, today we're 30 under there. Well, when you look, the 5-year average is 26 under and the 10-year average is 24 under. So I say, okay, looking at that and saying we're 4 cents away from that 5-year average. And given that we've got a massive crop, we've got a coronavirus world. Is there potential for improvement in the market? Yes. But is there also potential in the market, for movement the other direction in this market? Absolutely, given everything. So stepping back and saying, this is the situation in the environment I'm in. This is what our average numbers are. And looking at that, can I make some decisions based upon that are, not necessarily an emotional decision that I think it's going to do this or that, but this is kind of where we are and where we're at today, given what's going on in the environment. So these are kind of some numbers, like I said, everybody has access to here. And it's a great tool to sit down and look at and go through to just kind of make those decisions and see numbers on paper. That helps me, I guess, at least. One thing to watch in this corn market, again, when we were talking basis, is they're not real narrow. They were a little more narrow than whenever I had run this even, but be mindful of it and watch it. These corn spreads, right? They're probably a little more narrow than average, although they're not real close like soybean market is or anything. But what we've had a lot of guys doing is looking at saying, hey, I believe there's a rally in this market if that's truly your belief, but I want to get to that March or May, right? But I do not want to pay storage and drop charges on this corn I'm going to bring in. How can I avoid those? And there's been some rolling and different things going on there, right? So it's just one of those things to watch and be mindful of. Not saying it's for everybody, not saying it's the end-all solution. As we all know, the price can go down, as the months go on if news is negative. So we have to be mindful of what those risks are, but it's just something to pay attention to. This is part of what that is, right? So I looked at the 10-year average of what is the corn price? Again, the same way I did basis. And what I'm looking at is from month to month, what does that change, right? So when you look at the D's, the 10-year average of D's is 443. So to get to the March, if a guy says, hey, I'm going to put this bin in the, I'm going to put this grain in the bin, or I'm going to put this grain in the elevator and I'm going to pay storage on it. What is my upside potential? Just looking at it over an average, this is what those numbers look like. So I have to weigh, is it worth those charges and storage fees and things like that? I think the really interesting one's the next one when I get to the 5-year, and I've had this conversation with a lot of guys. It hasn't worked out in their favor, which that being, right, look at that difference. In the last few years, it hasn't paid to put, grain in the elevator and store it unless you happen to hit, right, you get those little swings right throughout that month and you hit it just right. But it's a pretty good gamble to say I'm going to pay storage and go from D's to March and really pick up nothing in my corn. I think that's kind of why we're here, right? Let's sit down and have those conversations. In some cases, and the way you look at things, and if you have a plan, it may make sense, but it doesn't make sense all the time. So we just have to sit down and navigate through that. So going into that, right, what are some opportunities that we have out here on this 2020 crop? The high is definitely come and gone, and that was January 2nd in the market. So it was a very short-lived day. But where are our opportunities at this time to navigate? So, we've kind of been looking here. How do we get to that $3 level? That's a number that we've talked about a little bit as maybe is our new benchmark right now, especially for fall corn. I mean, we all know that there's a massive crop growing out here in our territory. Is it 2018? No, but I believe it is. I believe it's going to go down the top 3 of the last 5 is just my opinion coming from the agronomy side of things. So, and there's going to be farms that surprise us and beat 2018. There's no doubt, but we had some challenges early in the growing season that I think maybe have slipped our mind just a little bit if we think about every single field. But how can we get $3 corn, right? So this is one of our programs that we offer. It's a knockout accumulator. And I was looking at this saying, okay, let's set basis. Let's set this in as a, $3.30 floor, put the 30-cent basis with it. That's a $3 cash sale. And that's going to trade until the corn market hits $2.97. And this was as of yesterday. These prices change with the market. So that doesn't mean that's what it is today. Again, sit down, have that conversation. But as of yesterday, this was a way to get a $3 cash sale as the market, cash bid is $2.90 and change. Just a way to try to navigate it. We're not going to get back to that 340 level or 350 level or anything like that by harvest for sure. Just things we have to be mindful of. So I just picked a few structures that I like and that I've utilized. But that brings us to, looking at forward and saying, hey, I don't have anything sold. I'm in trouble, right? Because there's a fair amount of guys that are in that position that have nothing done, but you have some on-farm storage. This is one of those opportunities. This sets a floor down there at a 339 futures level with a 363 accumulation. We've done a lot of these structures. There is some risk involved in that, but we can kind of navigate through that and talk and see if that's something that fits you. But to sit here and say, right, that I can get some corn sold at a guaranteed 339, 340, and then attach, a July basis to it down the road. I mean, that's an over $3 sale, far better than you're getting in the fall. And you may need to utilize some of that as you've got to start, thinking about putting inputs on for next year and may need cash flow or things coming in that you're going to have down the road to offset some of those expenses that you're going to see. So again, I don't think there's any silver bullet out here by any means. It's just how do we navigate through some of this and look at our levels of profitability and say, hey, here's where I'm at. This is what I need to do. And everybody's situation's a little different. How do I navigate through it? I don't want to see anybody just stop marketing, right? And just bury their head and say, oh, I'm farming for insurance or I'm farming for whatever. Because that's, to me, not the answer. We got to, at some point, stop the bleeding and get some things sold and moved. So that brings me on to then looking at soybeans, right? I put the same sheet up. And I think one of the things that's really interesting to look at is on this, I've had a lot of guys sell beans the last few days on this principle alone. If we can get to that $850 cash and we say we have 60 bushel beans using a $450 expense, which seems to be a pretty common number that guys agree on. I mean, that's 13% return on your money, right? And if we can get that 65, we're in the mid 20s to 30s. How do I guarantee myself 850? I either make a sale, right, or there's some opportunities out here to set some floors and do things, but leave my upside potential open to carry those percentages higher. I think you have to step back and say, okay, Do I want $9 cash? Absolutely. Am I going to wait for $9 cash to get something done? Well, maybe, but what if it goes to 750 or it goes to 7 or 8 or whatever, right? You're losing that money. You got to me, the way I look at it is you get to that 10 to 20% return on your money. That's a good range. And you get above that, that's an excellent range, no matter what your investment is. And that's really what this crop is to you, right? To generate cash flow as an investment to support you. So to me, it's just sitting down and looking at that. Again, these are things that we have that we can sit down and help everybody with if they, feel comfortable or want to go through those things. Looking at bean basis, guys, as I was doing this last night, I thought this was kind of interesting, really looking at what the 5 and 10 year basis average is and where we are today. And given the environment in the world, this, something to think about and look at if we got to bring, especially as beans are still kind of hovering $9, right? Take it back to that last slide. And there's some opportunity out here. We just got to act on it and not let it go to the wayside like corn happened to us, right? So looking at, to me, the soybean spread is a very interesting market. This market at one time was inversed quite a bit to the tune of 15 cents or so. And when you had that, well, a lot of guys, were setting basis, rolling it and getting basically that storage and picking up that, that roll on the basis side in the market, that carry on the basis side in the market. That's kind of come and gone, but that was there. And, there was several guys that took advantage of that, just something we were watching and looking at. But I think what you're looking at right now and an opportunity, if a guy has some bin grain, is look at that spread from the Nov to the Jan and March, right? It's not very wide at all. In comparison, it's a little wider than it was. But what we're looking at there is there's a lot of guys setting some HTAs, or NBEs out here and saying, hey, I don't want to set the basis. I'm going to bin this grain. My full intent is to bring it to you after, after the first of the year or whatever. I'm going to bin it and get that, better basis and take advantage of my bins. That's fine. But let's lock in that sale at these levels, right up there towards $9. And then to me, reevaluate come harvest. If that carry is still only 4 to 5 cents, does it make sense to put that grain in the bin? That's a decision you have to weigh. But, if you view a storage cost of 10 to 20 cents, as the expense against that, and that spreads 5 cents, does that make sense? That's just something you have to weigh. But if we can lock that in and this market goes back to a carry and we can pick up anywhere from 10 to 30 cents on it, we can roll that forward and add that to our price and turn some of these bean sales into pretty good prices, especially if there's any basis improvement to come with that. So those are things that we're looking at in the market. I think we just have to be mindful of it. That's kind of why we're here, is to help navigate those things and have those discussions. These are just anomalies in the market that are not normally there for as long as they are, especially on the soybean side. This has been something all year long here that normally we don't see for this long. So again, why we're here to have these conversations. And this was that slide showing the 10-year CBOT, the difference in those prices. So again, some pretty good opportunities, especially if a guy has some bins. I'm not opposed at all to setting that futures price with the intent of binning it and maybe rolling it down the road to pick up some more based upon what, how these markets kind of change over time. We just have to see and what those carries become. Just something to look at. So looking at these, talking soybeans and some opportunities, November bean structure, this is a straight knockout accumulator. We've run a lot of these, right? There's a couple different risks associated with it. But this is one that, right, 892 with an 858 knockout, those aren't bad bean prices. So I think it's something worth looking at and talking about it, as the market changes and we're seeing, 10-cent swings in the bean market. These numbers can change pretty quick and get up over $9 in a hurry. So it's something to act on. They can also go down. So again, a reason we want to act fairly quickly on them if we need to get some things moved and looked at. One of the structures I've used quite a bit, this worked extremely well on corn, and it's kind of why I'm excited about it on beans at the moment. If a guy believes there's some upside potential on the corn side, we were setting some of these structures right in front of that report that came out, and we had the 30-cent rally in the market. Yes, there was a cost associated with it. That market rallied 30 cents. Guys said, you know what, I'm dumping it, I'm done. And they picked up 25 cents or so in their pocket on that, right? So if a guy believes that there's some upside opportunity in this market, we all know beans aren't made till August, right? These beans are extremely far along, and we're an August rain away. My agronomy knowledge tells me from an absolute massive crop in this area on soybeans. But if a guy believes that, hey, there's some opportunity, we're seeing large exports, I feel like I don't want to limit my upside potential, right? I want to leave that wide open, because if China keeps buying, or we do have an issue weather-wise or something and the market takes off, I want to capture that upswing. This market sets a floor. There is a cost associated with it, and we can adjust through that, based upon what level of floor you want. But guys, that's not a bad sale at all, and a bad opportunity especially if you're somebody that is working with us closely or watches the market closely and is willing to pull the trigger if that market rallies 20, 30 cents, right? You can put some money in your pocket on the upside. So something to look at. If a guy sits here and says, I have absolutely nothing sold, I need to do something, I'm in trouble. I've done a lot of these structures lately. Looking at the 6-month average, you can kind of see where that's been. Let's get a floor underneath that with some premium potential there, or premium additional to it, and say, hey, that way if this thing does fall out of bed, come the end of August, or this new USDA report comes out or something, and they add a couple bushels of beans to this, I think this market's going to go to crap, but I need some things moved at some decent levels. This is a structure that's worked very well for us in a couple of different places. So that takes me to looking, it's time to kind of turn some attention to 2021. I know we got to get through 2020, but one of the things I've done, and I've not shared here, but I have and is available to us, is looking at input cost in relationship to grain price. And I know, the fertilizer guys are going to be coming around, right? And it's going to be time to talk next year's crop inputs. To me, it's a good idea if I'm buying inputs, I need to be selling grains to hedge against that risk. What those ratio relationships are actually really surprising when I run the numbers and look at it over a 10-year average, and not at all what I thought, really. So the fertilizer guys aren't too high, is my opinion on that, as far as where they've at in relationship to the grain markets. But as Darren's going to talk, through some of this 2021 stuff, I think those are some good numbers to look at and some good ideas and ways to get things in place. And we have that available, as far as if you guys want to see that and talk through those numbers, any one of us can get it and kind of look at that and show you kind of what those relationships are to help make some of those decisions. So that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Darren, and he's going to talk a little bit about some of the 2021 stuff that's out there. As we see, right, and we look at those profitability charts, if you want to sit down and look at them through us, help make some of these decisions. I think it's great to say, look, and these are the opportunities I can get some bushels sold for next year, and I know it's at a profitable level based upon what my inputs are going to be.